In a small town in northern Ethiopia, there is a chapel, guarded 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by a single man, a guardian who was chosen for this role until the end of his life, who cannot abandon his post, who cannot marry, who cannot have children, who says he is willing to die to protect what he guards. What is inside that chapel? According to Ethiopian tradition, the Ark of the Covenant, the same ark that Moses built in the desert, that the Israelites carried into battle. That killed whoever touched it without authorization. And according to the Kebra Nagast, Ethiopia's most important sacred book, the ark arrived there through a man who was the son of two of the most famous figures in ancient history, son of Solomon and son of the Queen of Sheba. The Queen of Sheba is one of the most mysterious figures in ancient history. She appears in the Bible, the Quran, the Talmud, and the Kebra Nagast. Each tradition tells a different version, but all agree on one thing. She was extraordinary. What the Bible says. In the first book of Kings, chapter 10. When the Queen of Sheba heard about the fame of Solomon, she came to test him with hard questions. She brought gold, 120 talents, approximately 4 tons, precious stones, spices in quantities never before seen in Israel. She asked questions. Solomon answered them all. She was impressed. They exchanged gifts, and she left. The Bible says nothing more, no romantic relationship, no son, no ark, just an extraordinary diplomatic visit. But where was Sheba? This is the question archaeologists have debated for centuries, the most academically accepted theory. The kingdom of Sheba was in southwestern Arabia, roughly where Yemen is today. The Sabaeans were a Semitic people with an impressive civilization. The Dam of Marib, one of the greatest engineering works of antiquity, irrigated fields in the middle of the desert. They controlled the trade routes of incense and spices, products that were worth literally more than gold in the ancient world. A queen from this kingdom visiting Solomon made complete commercial sense. But Ethiopian tradition says something else. The Queen of Sheba, called Makeda in the Kebra Nagast, was Ethiopian. She ruled a kingdom covering parts of what is today Ethiopia and Eritrea. Her capital was Aksum, the same city where the Ark is supposedly kept today. Which of the two is correct? Possibly both. The Kingdom of Sheba may have had influence in both regions, southern Arabia and the Horn of Africa, separated only by the Red Sea. A queen who controlled trade on both sides of the sea would be extraordinarily rich and powerful, exactly as the Kebra Nagast describes Makeda. The Kebra Nagast, in Ge'ez, Ethiopia's liturgical language, means the glory of kings. It is Ethiopia's most important sacred text, written in its current form around the 13th century, but based on much older traditions, possibly of Jewish and Arabic origin, dating back to the 4th century or earlier. What the Kebra Nagast tells, the story of Makeda, the Queen of Sheba, is far richer and more detailed than the biblical version. Makeda heard of Solomon's wisdom through a merchant named Tamrin. She was so fascinated that she decided to go to Jerusalem personally. She made a journey of months with an enormous caravan, carrying the richest gifts of her kingdom. She arrived in Jerusalem and was impressed by everything, the temple, the palace, Solomon's wisdom. She spent months learning from him. And when she finally announced she wanted to return to her kingdom, Solomon wasn't ready to let her go. The story of the banquet. Solomon organized a farewell banquet for Makeda. He served the most flavorful and heavily spiced dishes he could prepare. And after the feast, he invited her to sleep at the palace. Makeda agreed with one condition. Solomon must promise not to try to seduce her. Solomon promised with the reciprocal condition, Makeda must not take anything belonging to the palace. Makeda agreed, thinking it was a strange request. In the middle of the night, she woke with unbearable thirst. The banquet had been deliberately salty and heavily spiced. She got up and drank water, and Solomon appeared. "You have broken your oath. You took something of mine." Makeda protested that it was just water. Solomon replied that there was nothing more valuable in the world than water, and demanded the equivalent, a night with her. Makeda accepted, the son who changed history. When Makeda returned to Ethiopia, she was pregnant. She gave birth to a son. She called him Menelik, in Ge'ez, son of the wise. When Menelik grew up, he went to Jerusalem to meet his father. Solomon was enchanted by him. He wanted him to stay and be king of Israel, but Menelik refused. His place was in Ethiopia. Before departing, he asked Solomon for a sacred relic to take with him, and what he took, according to the Kebra Nagast, was the Ark of the Covenant. How did Menelik get the Ark? The Kebra Nagast has a surprising answer. He didn't steal it. The sons of Jerusalem's priests, who accompanied Menelik on the journey, removed the Ark and replaced it with a replica, without Menelik initially knowing. When Menelik discovered what they had done, he wanted to return the Ark. But the Kebra Nagast says God approved the transfer. The Ark now belonged to the Ethiopian people, who maintained faithfulness to Moses' laws more purely than Israel. Menelik arrived in Ethiopia with the Ark. He became king. He founded a lineage, and that lineage ruled Ethiopia, with some interruptions, for 3,000 years. The lineage that survived time, Ethiopian emperors used the title Lion of Judah, directly linked to the tribe of Judah, the tribe of Solomon and David. The last emperor, Haile Selassie, who ruled until 1974, held that title. He was the 225th descendant of Menelik, son of Solomon and Makeda, a royal lineage of 3,000 years, documented and publicly claimed. The Ark today. According to Ethiopian tradition, the Ark is in Axum, inside the chapel of the tablet, next to the church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. Only the guardian can enter. When the previous guardian is close to death, he chooses his successor, transfers the role, and dies. The current guardian, whose identity is kept partially secret, claims the Ark is there, that he has seen it, that he guards it, and that he is willing to die for it. Western researchers have tried to verify the claim. Some were allowed to approach, but not to enter. British archaeologist Graham Hancock spent years investigating and wrote The Sign and the Seal, arguing the Ark is probably in Ethiopia. But the definitive truth, like so many others in this story, has not yet been confirmed, and perhaps doesn't need to be, because the Kebra Nagast story is extraordinary, regardless of the Ark's physical location. It is the story of how a queen, a king, and a son founded one of the longest lineages in human history, and of how knowledge, and perhaps the world's most sacred object, traveled from Jerusalem to the Horn of Africa, to be kept by those who promised to keep it. The Kebra Nagast is not just a story of love and politics, it is a document of national identity, what it claims, that Ethiopia is the legitimate heir of the covenant between God and the chosen people, that Jerusalem lost the Ark, and with it, the divine presence, because Israel strayed from Moses' laws, that Ethiopia received it because it was faithful. This is an extraordinary claim, and it helps explain something fascinating: the Falasha, the Ethiopian Jews. For centuries, Ethiopians who practiced a form of Judaism, called Falasha or Beta Israel, were considered a historical curiosity. How did a Jewish community reach Ethiopia? The answer, according to tradition, is obvious. They descend from the followers of Menelik, who came from Jerusalem. In 1975, the same year Haile Selassie died, the Israeli government officially recognized the Falasha as Jews. Between 1984 and 1991, in two secret operations called Moses and Solomon, Israel evacuated over 20,000 Ethiopian Jews to Israel. A rescue operation that cost millions and involved cooperation from several governments. To bring back from Ethiopia people who claimed descent from Solomon. A story that began 3,000 years ago. And that still has real consequences today. The question that remains: what is really kept in Axum? If it's the Ark, what does that mean for the religious traditions of half the world? If it's not, what is it? And why did Ethiopia build its entire national and religious identity around this claim? Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.